So I ran out of stuff to talk about, so I guess we'll get into like molecular biology stuff. If you look at where water is in the body, you can see where all the different types of subjective experience in the human form comes from. Like everyone's trying to like look at like how does DNA work, how do these proteins work, how do these molecules work, and it's like if you just look at the whole pattern, there's no more research that needs to be done. This is the thing that like fits all the data. It's the only thing that fits all the data, and it's the only thing that aligns with people's direct observation. So if people go and they look at the nature of consciousness directly rather than any of the things consciousness is doing, what I'm saying here aligns with that as well. So like the whole science and religion is already bridged. It's very obvious. And so what consciousness is more or less what we would call the electromagnetic field. It's one facet of it. Consciousness, the only way to understand consciousness is as a field or as a medium. And then when that medium or that field butts up against something else, so even when it butts up against itself at a different density, right? Like you can have two layers of water. One layer might be warmer, the other layer might be colder, and you'll get a boundary condition, and that boundary between the hot and the cold water will support waves, right? So between the one density of consciousness that we'll call electromagnetism, basically all the layer that we call electrons, that electromagnetic field is vibrating up and down, and where there is a vibration up and down, you get a disturbance in the field, and that disturbance is what we would call an electron. So you can conceptualize that electron as a wave disturbance, or you could say, oh, it's a vortex. So the electromagnetic field is somehow cycling, vortexing in on itself. There's some sort of breath or there's some sort of draw to it, and you get this kind of toroidal shape. And so that's consciousness, that's water. Water is where the electromagnetic field is visible to your sense organs. So when the body or when consciousness is capable of viewing itself, you get something very similar to water. And so the water is the awareness looking out. The bulk water, the density of water, the invisible water that's just a medium, it's just a field, is looking. Like I'm saying it is looking as a verb, but also it is looking as a noun. So if you're wondering what your looking is or where your looking is coming from, the water is looking at the human level. Everything is looking at different levels, but at the human level, the looking is coming from the water. If you start looking from different areas of looking, you shift into realms that have nothing to do with the human experience. The human experience is all coming from the looking that we call water. That looking, a lot of it in the body is contained within cells. The cells are enveloped in an electromagnetic envelope, the cell membrane. The cell membrane is charged, so on the outside of it, it's got a bunch of electrical charge, and on the inside, it's got a bunch of electrical charge, and it's separated by the cell membrane, which is fat, or lipid, or neutral. Each one of these cells is surrounded by strings of nerves. I'll draw this again one day. I discovered this like 10 years ago. It was a biological grand unification theory. So surrounding each cell are strings of nerves, and they're myelinated. So as the nerves fire, they go psh, 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 and there's big electromagnetic explosions as the nerves change their frequency. there's these explosions happening at a particular frequency. So imagine explosions happening next to these capacitors that we call cells. Those are the individuals of the body, and they induce vibrations onto the membrane of the cell. So every time a nerve goes off, all the cells around that nerve receive that explosion, they receive that impulse, and it puts a vibration on the surface of the cell. And so all the nerves are firing. They're in a coherent pattern. It's not like the seeing happens anywhere. The seeing modulates the whole neural net of the body. Is all these nerves firing at a frequency, and then that frequency is modulated by the sense organs, and it's modulated by the heart, and everything talks back and forth. And so you have this frequency of nervous system activity, and then that frequency is inducing a vibration on the surface of every cell. That vibration on the cell creates the world of the cell. That's the reality. That's Plato's cave. That's the TV screen. The cell membrane of the body is the TV screen. All the cell membranes are tied together via the DNA, acting like a frequency antenna. So all of the junk DNA, or all of the silent DNA, is identical. It's coiled like an antenna. It's coiled in the exact same shape. And so that puts all the cells on the same TV station. Cancer is when the TV station changes. Like the DNA changes the expression so much that cell no longer identifies with all the other cells. It's on a different signal. It's on a different station. And so then it starts acting like an independent organism. So all the water looking out from the cells is trapped in a matrix. It's contained, right? And then all the water in the blood is freely rushing. It's pursuing its heart. It's pursuing the drive. It's pursuing the spirit. The blood is electromagnetically connected to the air, so it's pursuing spiritual impulses of freedom, of power, of strength, of all of these different archetypes and these mediums and these things that are in the air. The blood tunes into that, and it's free. It's not trapped in a cell. It's free to express whatever it wants. All the cells work on behalf of the heart, right? And then you have kind of like what would be called the monastic class of water, which is just cerebral spinal fluid. It's incredibly clear. It's not necessarily magnetically tied to anything the way the blood is. The blood is just full of magnets. The hemoglobin is a magnet. And so the blood, while it's rushing freely and always moving and has this massive impulse and this will behind it, it is fundamentally a slave to the electromagnetism of the air, the aerial spirits, the aerial realm, the platonic realm, the archetypes. The blood is, while it's not trapped in a container like the cellular matrix, the blood is bound by the electromagnetic qualities of the hemoglobin that are dissolved in it. So it's not clear. The blood's thick. It's not clear. It can't see anything. It just is passion. Then you have the cerebrospinal fluid. The cerebrospinal fluid is extremely clear. It's dispassionate. It's right next to the activity of the nerves. It's next to the activity of the thing generating the matrix, but it's not that. It's enveloping it. And so it's right there. It's like if you're paying attention to your thoughts, if you're paying attention to your perceptions, that puts you in the place of the watcher, the cerebrospinal fluid, the clear, transparent watcher, the dispassionate watcher that's supporting and floating everything. And again, if you get very much centered in the watcher, you can start to float your entire perceptual apparatus, which is the brain and the spine. And then at that point, your nervous system becomes free, similar to a person in water or in a pool. You're floating There's a levity to it, and then that's where all these spiritual states and these experiences come from. It's coming from the water. So the water is the consciousness. The water is that electromagnetic field visible at the body level. It's the consciousness that your sense organs are capable of detecting. Your sense organs are not capable of detecting the 1s 2p orbitals that are holding together the molecular bonding of the pavement or the molecular bonding of the trees. Your sense organs are not attuned to that, your five senses, but your five senses are attuned to the frequency and the density and the vibration of water. Every sense organ can detect water or be modulated by water. And so, yeah, your DNA is at the core. It's at the core of your consciousness. It's a radio signal at the very core of the cellular consciousness. So it's at the core of the matrix consciousness. The DNA is not really involved in the blood consciousness because that water is free from genetic material. The same thing with the cerebral spinal fluid. That water is free from the frequency and the noise of the genetic material, which is thought. Like what people think of as thought, especially thought that makes the world different, like the beliefs that you have about yourself, determines your genetic expression. Because those beliefs and those thoughts are your DNA. DNA and RNA is thought. And so what and your DNA and your RNA is also determining your physiological expression in a certain way. Like what you express at that level determines what you are physically. And what you are physically is what the water is encased in. But so it's not what you are. What you are is the water. And so the water is the water's in the matrix, the water is in the CSF fluid, the water is in the blood, right? The water is in the lymph. That's just an accurate picture. So if you're going to be doing physiological training, spiritual training, just existing kind of itself, that's going on. If you want to see this, you have to have deep focus and for a long period of time. If you focus for a long period of time and deeply, you'll eventually start to notice this rather than just noticing anything on the surface of the water or anything on the cellular matrix. But yeah, so the main pattern is that the consciousness is that field of looking, and then when that field creates a boundary condition, you have waves. When you have a boundary condition that's capable of supporting waves, that's where a world or a realm or things come from, because that's where you get the waves are the objects. It's the consciousness doing something separate from everything else. Like there's that wave there, and that wave is not that wave, even though they're both consciousness. So before anybody like starts speculating about microtubules or like what psychedelics are doing or anything else, it's like this very simply is obviously how the system works. Yeah.